ladies and gentlemen, cats and kittens, boys and girls, to the premiere episode of Frequency 432, The Backstory with Rock's Royalty. And today on our premiere episode, we have Mr. Rick Sparhawk and Mr. Jim Soldi of Picus Maximus and Montezuma's Revenge fame here in San Diego, California. And we're going to talk to them about some of their stories from back on the road and what they're doing today in the span of about, I think, 55 years for you guys as friends and collaborators. Is that about right?
Something like that.
Yeah. Yeah. So you guys are both from San Diego, East County, your whole lives, you're natives?
Well, not yet.
Not yet. So. It's possible that might change.
Well, not our whole lives.
We live tomorrow.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. You went to Monte Vista.
Monte Vista High School, out further east out.
And Jim went to El Cajon.
Yes, I did.
And you guys met in high school or right out of high school?
We met through Charlie.
I think you had just graduated, or you were just graduating. I think we met in like 1969.
Was that the Pops concert?
I believe so. Yeah.
Our high school had a Pops concert.
Yeah.
And we performed in that in a different band for me. But through that, we met Jim and Charlie Rosenberger and the original crew of the Montezuma's Revenge.
And you guys describe yourselves as a bionic bluegrass band. Where did that moniker come from?
Well, because we were electrified.
Ah, that's the difference?
Well, it started out as a jug band.
Yeah.
Okay.
We actually even had a jug from time to time that we'd bring out and
sort of in that 13th floor elevators spirit? Or?
Something like that. But, I mean, nobody could... We all, kind of lost our breath and, started to pass out if you tried to use the jug too much.
Hyperventilating?
Yeah, we did that. Yeah.
That's one easy way of getting high, without having to do the lysergic thing like they did back in Texas back in the 60s. It wasn't long before that you started Montezuma's Revenge, and then you guys played from like about 73 up to about the beginning of the 80s. Is that right?
I think it's earlier than that.
It was earlier than that.
Oh, yeah?
69 or
69, 70.
Okay.
Yeah.
Jim and I played another band called Dakota prior to that. Then we did that.
And I played in another band prior to that with
Charlie
and Malcolm, who were both also in Montezuma's Revenge. So we had like the rock side and the however you define this side.
Yeah.
So.
You mean the unique hybrid of American music that you guys were performing at the time?
Well, we went and we did a Battle of the Bands, which was rock and roll. We did a bluegrass festival, and we did a country western Battle of the Bands kind of thing.
And you won all three of them,
all three, the trifecta, all the same year. That was 72, I think.
You call that your trifecta?
My trifecta.
Yeah. You had a dad that was a musician, Rick?
He was a jazz bass player, upright. You can't see it over there, but there's a pre-war Gibson bass over there in 1930-something. And he played in town here with a jazz group.
He came out from Ohio?
Came out from Ohio.
Midwest. And then your dad famously was the owner with Shorty Rogers, with Smokey Rogers.
Smokey Rogers.
In Valley Music in the Bostonia Ballroom. And tell us a little bit about that.
But before that, he's a very legit fiddle player that kind of got pigeonholed in country western because he was also with Tex Williams on the Smoke, Smoke, Smoke That Cigarette album. That's my dad playing the fiddle solo on it.
That's royalty right there.
And before that, I mean, he was a conservatory trained violinist from Pennsylvania that kind of graduated and moved out here along with a bunch of other people.
And his mom was a singer.
And your mom had a radio program back in West Virginia?
Yeah, she had a radio. Back then, a radio program lasted 15 minutes,
right.
Sponsored by somebody. So she had her own radio program. She played guitar and sang. She went under the name Ginger Snow.
Sounds lovely showbiz.
Oh, yeah, it's very showbiz.
Better than Yellow Snow.
Right. And then before you said you could even talk or write the English language, you were already able to sort of sight read?
I learned how to read. I started playing piano, take piano lessons around 5 years of age, and I could actually read notes before I could read words. So I've since pretty much lost that entire ability.
Was that right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So you got to learn, you had to like sort of sit at the feet of a lot of masters through your dad's
I did.
music store.
Yeah, hanging around the music store, all the top musicians of the day would come in, and they would teach me things without me having to take lessons, because I was just kind of, the cute little kid. Oh, I'll show him how to play a C chord. So that's pretty much how I learned. I think my mom showed me a couple of chords on guitar, and that was the first thing that I learned. And first thing I ever taught myself was "Don't Take Your Guns to Town" by Johnny Cash.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and it was real easy because, well, let's see, it's all open strings. And that, just learning the intro to that was kind of fun and inspiring, and maybe I could do more on this.
So Johnny Cash was like some of the first music you were passionate about, or got you interested.
Yes and no. The stuff that I listened to at home, I used to listen to like album soundtracks, movie soundtracks on albums that we had at the house, and I started to really love that kind of stuff. And then yeah, I got into a little bit of Johnny Cash and Marty Robbins. I loved that whole Gunfighter Ballads album, the Pink album with Marty Robbins drawing the gun.
El Paso, what a classic.
Yeah, yeah.
We had the privilege of playing with them on the Grand Ole Opry.
Big Iron.
Oh, Marty Robbins?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And a couple other fairs too. A couple of Grandstand
we
shows.
did.
What kind of music got you excited and wanted you to pick up
Well,
the bass?
I was like 11 years, probably 11 when I first picked up the bass. My brother picked up the guitar. We had a flip to see who got what.
Really?
Yeah. But I think the first song was "Hanging Down Your Head, Tom Dooley."
Yeah.
I think that's it. And to make ourselves famous, we used to dial up on the rotary dial phone. Someone would answer hello. We'd pick up our start playing for him and singing for him.
So by a simple sheer coin toss, you became a bassist?
Yeah, exactly.
That's pretty funny. So you were doing a pretty stock repertoire of like covers, or you being kind of a bar band, but you're also writing some of your own irreverent, sort of satirical kind of numbers when you were in Montezuma's Revenge. Is that an accurate description?
Yeah, I think we both started more on the rock and roll side and moved up from that into the bluegrass side. And
That's
the whole crew is just a funny bunch of people.
Right.
So we just started picking up some funny songs, and
you developed your own unique nicknames for monikers for the different guys in the band. You were Lizard and Bosco.
Yeah.
And what were the other guys?
Farley the fiddler, Charlie was Zeke, and Malcolm was Hickey.
And we had Tidy Bowl.
And Tidy Bowl.
There did seem to be a fair amount of potty humor in the Montezuma's. I mean, the very name itself conjures up the trots, as it were.
Oh, yeah.
And which is also akin to what a lot of people look like when they're out two-stepping on a dance floor.
Green apple two-step.
Like green apple two-step, yes, exactly. So we go back to the origins of Montezuma's Revenge and how...
Pre-Picus.
Yeah, pre-Picus. As somebody, I grew up in the D.C. area, and I came out here at the beginning of the 80s from the East Coast. And I still had a feeling, even by 1980, that San Diego was a little bit on the provincial side. They had 3 million people here, 3.3 million, but it still felt like everybody had moved here from Boise or from the Midwest. And it had like metropolitan size population, but kind of a small town feel.
Yeah.
And that sort of translates sometimes into not enough cosmopolitan savvy or sophistication. From an East Coast.
You calling me a hick?
No, but I would say that if we go back to the early 70s, you guys were on Montezuma was on the first Homegrown Hour, which was a project I believe put together by KGB initially.
KGB, I'll tell you the story on that.
And you guys had a song called Spring Valley Sally.
Spring Valley Sally.
Yeah.
What it was, I was driving home from the beach, and I'm listening to KGB on the radio, and the disc jockey said, "Hey, I received a song last week from a group in Chula Vista about their area called Chula Vista. I'm just wondering if anybody else has songs like that." And about the same time, same week, we found out that Jack Murphy Stadium was off limits to another we had a nice $1.01 concert there the year prior. We were going to have another $1.01 concert there with some other high-end stuff. And Fire Marshal said, "You can't have it there. You mess the field too much," or something like that. So Rick Liebert, I think it was Rick Liebert. Was he a disc jockey or?
I believe so.
Okay, so it was Rick Liebert. Said, "Anybody else has a song about their area?" I thought, well, God, I can write a song real fast about that. So I went home and wrote Spring Valley Sally, along with Chris Vitus.
Yeah.
I wrote the lyrics, and Chris and I wrote the music, all in one night. Submitted it, and Rick goes, "I just got another song here. Listen to this. We're gonna replace that concert with the album called Homegrown Album, yeah. And from that,
it'll sell for $1.01,
same price as the concert." And so that's how and that went on to, I don't know, there was like 6 or 7 albums.
8 of them, I believe.
8 of them.
Up through the last one, I think was about 83 or 84 was the last one.
Yeah. And there was pretty good submissions. I mean, we had a lot of talent in San Diego, just undiscovered talent.
There's some great songs on those albums. And they're a great reflection of the local consciousness. Like, I talked to Jerry Rainey of Bee Farmers fame and glory, one of your contemporaries back in the 70s.
Yeah.
And I asked Jerry to explain to me, can you tell me what you think makes San Diego unique? And I think all he could come up with was like fish tacos, Mexican beer, and the beach. And I thought, well, okay. I know there's got to be more cultural things that distinguish San Diego than that.
Well, I will
not
say,
to Jerry.
But not to Jerry. Not to Jerry. Exactly. And
funny thing, Casa de Oro, which is just a little suburb just south of me here, Kim Breedlove, a friend of mine, had Breedlove guitars. Taylor Guitars kind of came out of that area.
Yeah. Deering
banjo came out of there. There was a slew of artisans making instruments and stuff in little Casa de Oro. So we had a little hub of music going on there. And I thought it was kind of cool because Casa de Oro, House of Gold, is like, that's a good name for a record company, actually, you know.
Yeah.
So, anyways, there's cultural little pockets here and there in San Diego. We weren't all hicks.
But there's always this thing of being in the shadow of Los Angeles and being 2 hours away from LA, and there's a lot of bands on a national, international level.
That's not a bad thing.
No, but we're becoming more like Los Angeles with each passing month, as it has been for the last, since I've observed the last 41 years. It seems that every decade we become closer and closer in density and culture to LA. But
well, because we were doing a lot of fairs, our group got to tour up and down California. So we were into Los Angeles and all the way to San Francisco and above. And we were drawing big crowds. And we'd show up to a show, like not a fair thing, but a private, rock and roll concert kind of show. Mm-hmm. They'd put us in third place down on the list. And the headliner, we would show up, we would play. Our crowd was with us because we'd been playing up and down the coast for all this time. We'd draw a big crowd there. And then the headliner would come on, and the crowd would just dissipate. It was like they were using us to try to. The record company was using us to try to promote their artists. They were trying to promote, and we were drawing the crowd, and they weren't. It's funny. I was kind of interested in that whole.
Well, that's just smart promotion to put together a complimentary bill where the bands, draw.
But you'd think they would bring someone in to support the band they're trying to promote. The headliner, right? Well, we got some interesting stories about our growth in the music industry. We were in the house band at Knott's Berry Farm.
Oh, yeah.
We replaced, they had another band that was, this is the wagon camp. This is the outdoor arena that has a bunch of covered wagons and a stage. And
frontier theme.
During the day, they would do stunt shows at this place. Yeah. And then at night, after 6 p.m., they transformed it into a concert venue.
Yeah. And we became that house band for we'd be hired like, I think about 3 or 4 weeks out of the summer, maybe a couple of months out of the summer.
Few months out of the summer.
Every year for a number of years, we'd go up there, perform, and we got rained out one time. Still got paid. It was a nice gig, but we just stayed in the hotel the whole time. Couldn't do anything because it was raining outside. So Malcolm and I started writing something called the Dirty 30s. I can't recite the lyrics here in front of you guys, but it became at Mom's Saloon probably one of the most requested songs. The Dirty 30s. It was a limerick like da 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 to the beat of da 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 da, and we had a gas for a week coming up with some outrageous lyrics for that song. And that was good. Knott's Berry Farm came to us. They said, "We like your name. We're putting a brand new thrill ride, our first thrill ride up." Because Knott's Berry Farm at the time was mostly just, I don't know, what do you call it, low-level ride stuff. No big.
And they sold jams and jellies and fried chicken. And they were going to put a big theme ride in, and they were going to name it. And they came to us and said, we're thinking about calling it Montezuma's Revenge. ZOOM. Are you guys okay with that? We said, well, heck yeah. So that's how the name Montezuma's Revenge for that ride up in
Knott's
Berry Farm came about.
They had another name for it, and I can't remember what it was, but then they kind of like watched the crowd that was gathering for us and said, ooh, maybe we can use that name.
So you guys got to the end of the line with Montezuma's, what, about 1980 or so? And they continued on without you.
I think it was before that.
Okay.
No, 1980 is when I left.
Okay, so it was about 1980.
And then you guys went off and started doing your own things individually. And
well, let's talk about him leaving and the reason he left.
Why'd you leave?
We were playing the grandstand show at Del Mar Fairgrounds, and Johnny Cash was the headliner. We were the warm-up group. And Jim, through his dad in the Bostonia ballroom, I'll get to the story about the guitar, had hired Johnny Cash to come in at the Bostonia ballroom, who had just signed
Many times, but
this time he had just signed a contract with, I think, Columbia Records, had some front money, and asked his dad if he can open the store up. He wants to buy a new guitar. So he brought his old Martin.
That was in around 1964, probably.
So he brought his Martin into Jim's store, and his dad said, "I think you're going to become famous," because I don't think he was quite famous yet.
He was getting there.
He was getting there.
He didn't have his TV show yet.
Yeah.
And my dad took his old guitar, which was all kind of beat up, as a trade-in.
Johnny Cash's old guitar.
Yeah. And he handed Johnny a nail, said, "Here, sign this." And so Johnny actually, signed it right here. This is not that guitar, but he just signed it with a nail and just scratched it into the top.
And that was Johnny Cash's first guitar, as far as we know.
If I remember correctly, then you ended up owning that guitar, and it was stolen at one point.
That is correct.
And then you got it, and then you recovered it.
It, and the
thief,
the rocket surgeons who stole it, saw that there's a signature on there that said, "Well, this is problematic, so we'll send it down."
Sanded it out, so they removed that part.
Not with a nice light. It was a big grit sandpaper. It was.
Yeah. What Rick was talking about in 1980, Johnny Cash was playing the grandstand show at the Del Mar Fair, which we were also playing, and I took the guitar back. It was a July 4th. 1980, I think. And I had him sign it again. Several years later, I went to work for him. And like 6 years later, in 1986, I went to work with Johnny Cash, and I was touring his. He had a museum at the time in his office building.
The House of Cash?
Yeah, in the House of Cash. And John walked through, and I said, "I see this display of instruments. You got Luther's Esquire, Marshall's upright bass, and W.S. Holland's drums." And I said, "I have something that you might want to put up there." And I told him what it was, told him how I got it. And John said, I think you might have my first guitar. Okay, well, I didn't think anything of it because he's been playing since 1955, and this guitar was 1958. I could tell by the serial number. So I didn't say anything about it. But I brought it in, and it was on display at the House of Cash for, 7, 8 years. And when John passed away, a couple of years after that, I contacted Marshall Grant, who was John's bass player from day one. And I asked him, did you take the same instruments that you had at home and take them on the road, or did you have different things that you would bring out? And he says, man, we just used what we had. And I told him what I had. I said, I've got this guitar that John traded in to my dad for a new guitar, and it was at the Bostonia Ballroom. And he remembered the Bostonia Ballroom very well. He played there quite a few times. And he got quiet and he said, I think you might have John's first guitar. And I thought, how can that be? And he says, well, all the time that John was recording during the Sun years, Sun Records, he used my Martin in the studio. And he used a Gibson on the road because Gibson gave them to him and had his name inscribed on there. And he says, and John did not buy his first guitar until Columbia Records bought his contract from Sun, which was 1958. Mm-hmm. So,
great providence for a guitar. Huh?
Indeed. And how fantastic that you ended up through, I guess it was initially through Rodney Crowell, that you made some further connections in Nashville, led you to Marty Stewart.
Yeah.
And you ended up taking Marty Stewart's place in Johnny's band for a good 4 years.
That's correct.
Yeah. That must have been a hell of a thing to play side by side with such a legend.
Oh yeah, you got to see a lot of the world, many countries in Europe and Canada and Albert Hall.
Albert Hall.
Yeah, that was a great show.
Playing the Royal Albert Hall.
Yeah, and Glenn Campbell was the opener for that show, and it was great.
So Glenn Campbell was your opener.
Yeah.
So there was a period there when you guys left Montezuma's that you weren't doing anything together musically for a while.
Quite a while.
He was on the road.
Quite a while.
I showed up in Lucady, I think it was, because Jim was playing there with another group. So I said, I'll go see Jim. I haven't seen him for a while. Go up there, and a legend, guitarist, right, playing with Johnny Cash and all these groups and stuff like that. So I go up there expecting a hefty crowd in the room. There's like 3 people in there. I'm going, something is freaking wrong with this picture. This guy, just him alone should be commanding a huge audience in here. I said, something's wrong with that. I said, I'm going to.
And the band was good.
And the band was good. Was it a weeknight or weekend?
It was a weeknight.
Yeah, so maybe that was it. I don't know. But at that point, I said, I'm going to resurrect him from the dead. So that's how
when you began the Picus Maximus.
And Picus Maximus is a North American woodpecker that used to be pretty prevalent throughout Arkansas and the area there, and all the Indians used to hunt those things and cut their beaks off and wear them around in a coronet around their neck. So I think it's the American Indians that killed those things off, but they become an extinct species. But the year I ran into Jim, somebody claimed they saw a sighting of one in Arkansas. And I said, well, if that thing can make a comeback, Jim and I are going to make a comeback.
Right.
Right. So that's how Picus Maximus started. That's the Latin name for the woodpecker.
So then you decided to come up with, you guys have played some live gigs, but it's been mostly a studio concept for the two of you together.
Yeah.
And so in 2006, you crossed paths, you started working together, and you started putting together what you wanted to call a rock opera or a song cycle, which turned out to be the first of, I think, going to be several type of albums. And the first one in 2008 was The Tragedy of Johnny Patriot, which dealt with...
I think it's 2006, but...
2006?
I think so, yeah.
Okay.
It was the 9/11 event happened, and I thought, well, maybe a few years later, okay to write something about that. And so I wrote the lyrics for it. Actually, I wrote the songs for it in my cruise style. And then brought in Jim and said, Jim, how would you like to participate on a combo album? And he's got a nice studio out in Ramona. And so that's how that whole thing started. And then Jim took my songs and lyrics and massaged it the way he thought he did my work out better. And that was our first album.
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of a labor of love because we were doing it. We'd get together like one day every couple of weeks and try to, flesh out a song. That first one, we actually used computer drums. There's no drummer on that one, so that was. I think a lot of it was just trying to figure out how to massage the computer program to make it actually sound like a drummer. I mean, knowing what we know now, we would have said, let's hire a drummer.
You would have brought in Bobby Sale.
We would have.
Played the drum part.
Definitely would have.
Who has played the drums on
everything else since.
Every subsequent project for Picus since then.
Yeah.
So we did that album, and then
after that,
we said let's do another one. And
then you did sort of like a Halloween horror movie themed album.
Yeah, a themed album again, not necessarily story wise, but it's really just an audio panoramic audio thing of all the old black and white movies you go to the drive-ins on. So
this all started because we were actually kind of reminiscing about some other friends of ours who had written this amazing song about a vampire.
Yeah.
And we thought, well, we can do that.
Yeah.
So, but in this project, we actually incorporated that particular song. That was kind of the impetus for the whole thing.
Yeah.
And so we did another couple vampire tunes, and Rick was saying, well, let's do a werewolf tune, or how about something about the mummy, and everything was kind of drawn from like the old Universal horror movies from the 30s, and even something with Godzilla and.
A space one.
Oh yeah, we had something about.
We actually used a
space.
What was that for?
Oh, a theremin.
Theremin, yeah.
It's called Lullabies for the Cursed.
Lullabies for the Cursed, yeah.
I think the most horrific song that you guys came up with for that album is called the New World Order song. Dealing with those who would want to put everybody under their thumb, so to speak, and keep us as indentured servants for the rest of our days.
Well, that kind of morphed into different things, because when we talk about people trying to keep us under their thumbs, I'm always thinking about all the horror movies, the science fiction movies where there's always this one scientist that thinks the monster actually has good motives. Like, we just don't understand him, but that's the first guy that dies.
The twisted idealist who isn't looking at things in a very realistic manner.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I'm sure we can throw a lot of parallels in current culture into that bucket.
And politics, right?
Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm. And then from there, you decided to lighten things up thematically, and you did an album called A Little Love with a bunch of the concept of
a love letters.
Love letters in the sand, and
exactly.
and love songs that don't necessarily tell a story, but go to.
And I think we had one protest song in there too. For
there was a protest song on it.
Right about the summer of 2018, I got to meet you both and do a cover story for you for the local publication for the San Diego Troubadour. And you were in the middle of doing an album. You had started calling it the Silicon Carbon Wars, I think was the initial title, but eventually...
Well, that's the subtitle, I think. It's the...
Okay. But then eventually...
Darwin's Unnatural Laws of... Whatever it is, it says it.
Whatever it is.
Whatever.
Well, it's Darwin's Lesser-Known Theory of Unnatural Seduction. Yeah. It's the official title of what the fourth Picus Maximus LP became. And in tandem with the album, you came up with this concept, Rick, of having a thing called the Music Stand magazine, and along with the music, you were presenting, I think, a rather revolutionary concept of having a magazine that's like a graphic novel that illustrates the story, that has the lyrics for the songs, and there's a QR code inside so that you can bring the music up on your phone and listen to it through whatever device you're going to listen to it through, and you can look at it kind of like the concept albums of old back in the 70s.
That's what we grew up on that stuff. I missed. The fun used to be going into a record store, Licorice Pizza or whatever, picking the albums up and kind of thumbing through it and looking at the pictures, and that's what drew you into the music in the first place, and then you bought the album because of that. Today we don't have that.
Well, when the music industry decided en masse in the 90s to pretty much stop pressing up vinyl for any of the majors, independent bands and artists were still doing limited runs of vinyl, but for the most part, you had 2 or 3 options, which was you could go digital and follow along with what the industry was dictating, or you could stick to your vinyl and listen to the stuff that you'd already accrued, or you just stopped consuming music altogether.
Yeah.
And with streaming platforms, with downloads, there were so many things. The face of the music industry completely changed in the 90s and the early 2000s. And so the old models of what we used to have of how music got promoted and conceived and performed completely changed.
And got paid for.
And got paid for. And that's the other problem. When it started with Napster and other platforms.
Napster, that's right.
Where you had basically what Neil Young calls Xeroxes of the Mona Lisa, where the information was being so stripped out, you were having the faintest idea of the information that was being presented in the music itself from a frequency standpoint, and you were just getting very minute aspects of what was there originally, and then people were downloading that and listening to that on their phones and thinking that was a musical experience, and indeed it's devalued the music to the point where people didn't feel like they were entitled to it for free, that the musicians and the artists that were creating it didn't deserve to be compensated for their work, and it created a paradigm shift that we're still feeling the repercussions from.
I reckon
we're not even close to feeling the whole thing yet.
You don't think so?
It's going to get worse before it gets better.
AI is going to wipe out all the creatives, I think.
Is that right?
Yeah.
That's a rather optimistic point of view.
Well, we saw the albums go away.
Have you heard that album?
I've listened to it repeatedly, and I believe there is a morality tale throughout the entire thing.
There is.
Including your summation at the end of it, which I believe is a beautiful thing of putting things in context. When the machines run amok, like they do in 2001 and in The Terminator, etc., programs like Fringe, where we've got these sci-fi concepts that I really think at this stage really are more like a documentary rather than a fantasy.
Yeah,
and
it's coming to life.
And so now you're getting into the deeper stuff of like, what do we value as human beings and as spirits and human beings? What kind of a culture do we want to create? Or are we so lazy and complacent and apathetic about the convenience that the machines provide that we let them take over, and it ends up being...
Don't you think that's what's happening right now?
I think that there are some aspects of it where it looks like that's what's happening, but we are carbon-based mammals. And those who would rather find a way to politicize that aspect by creating carbon taxes and such, we are carbon-based animals. The plant life on planet Earth is dependent on us expelling carbon. There should be no taxation involved with that. That's the give and take between nature and man. And animals on this planet thrive through an abundant plant life. So it's rather absurd to think of things in a carbon-based thing being...
the government's going to squash this whole thing now because you're taking a political aspect of it.
Well, the idea that we're talking about strict, real science, I expel carbon monoxide, and it feeds the plants. That's pretty incontrovertible.
Well, the carbon silicone wars is, that's the silicones taking over the carbon world,
That's right.
And I just feel like I don't know how you compete with the next generation of AI.
Machine, electronic driven. I mean, electronic music, the second you record any sound, it becomes electronic music. So, but how to get, people to be able to want to
listen to
that. Yeah, that's a whole nother thing.
That's a whole other thing.
But I think that the human spirit is ultimately irrepressible, and
Well, yeah.
and that we will triumph no matter what. No matter what comes down the pike. And I think that we are on the verge of another kind of cultural renaissance, believe it or not. And time will tell.
Vis-a-vis AI?
Vis-a-vis, I think, an evolutionary leap in consciousness amongst
It's a marriage of silicon and carbon, right?
Perhaps.
I think maybe in spite of AI.
Yes, I agree. Yeah, because we've had enough cautionary tales of where that can take us. And your album is a fantastic example of that.
No, thanks.
No, I think it's a great song cycle that people need to hear, and then maybe as we change up the models of how music is consumed and supported, that will somehow, we'll be championing that in the not too distant future somehow.
I want to give a shout out to that Music Stand magazine. Well, the magazine, I really got started, I thought, because it wasn't so much to talk about AI and dystopian future stuff. It was that the opportunity for a band that wanted to promote itself doesn't exist anymore. You used to take your albums down to the Licorice Pizza or whatever, convince the guy at the desk to take a few of your albums, place them in there, and people would see it and they'd read it and get into you, right? You don't got that now. There is no record stores, and you have no way to place your music in front of anybody other than the 10,000, maybe 200,000 million people that are posting stuff on the internet saying, listen to my music, listen to my music. You have no way of carving out a place in the music world.
Well, that's the problem with the internet is if we have a platform that does allow an equal voice for all humans, that's a beautiful thing from the abstraction of what we think of as democracy, that everybody has an equal voice. But you can see that we're drowning in a deluge of information. And record companies, for better or for worse, used to serve as sort of gatekeepers for the industry, where they would be the ones that would wade through all the demo tapes.
Yeah.
And they would be the ones that would declare and decree that someone was of a caliber that they deserve.
And they'd make some money off of it.
They deserve a recording budget. They would deserve some backing from the company, and they would roll the dice and see what happened with them.
Yeah.
But we don't have that any longer.
No.
That model is pretty much destroyed, and for better or for worse.
When Jim and I played in rock and roll bands, we used to go play for fraternity parties or whatever it was in the early days. We got paid for it.
Right.
Now the bands have to pay to play.
That's right.
Or play for free.
That's right.
It's where do what's the incentive? You're competing against 10 trillion other people that think they have something to offer people. You've seen some of the stuff. It's a few of them make it up to the top of the chart,
But this joke of a culture has turned music into a competition with America's Got No Talent and, and all the other kinds of shows where it's turned into a competition and a spectacle, and it has really very little to do with art and everything to do with monetizing entertainment on a level that really, if we had better music programs in schools and we had people's consciousness elevated to a level where they could actually absorb something beyond what's been dumbed down for the lowest common denominator, we might have an audience that was prepared to hear something that's above that level.
Yeah. I mean, we were fortunate at our age to have lived through a true renaissance of music.
Absolutely.
Those songs still are the ones that are played in the clubs now.
That's right.
They don't want new stuff. They don't want experimental stuff. They want a cover band to do some old Led Zeppelin or Crosby, Stills, Nash.
When I was at the music store, it was fascinating that we'd always have the printed music books of all the current artists that were out there, but the young kids would come in and they would buy the Beatles, they would buy Led Zeppelin, they would buy the Rolling Stones, they would buy Bob Dylan, because that was good music,
right?
As opposed to how can you write music for a rap group?
That's right. Or even the bands that are like the Linkin Parks and the Korns and the bands that are playing that are getting that kind of part of the market. You can't really. You could write out on staff paper the beats and the lyrics to, say, a Snoop Dogg song or an Outkast track, but it's not going to be compelling in the way that you're playing a Beatles song is going to be.
Right. I mean, I often kind kind of fantasize, probably one of the best, the most top 10 hits of any artist was Drake. And I'm trying to imagine a Drake song being played at the supermarket 50 years from now. It'll still be the Beatles.
It'll still be the Beatles, I think.
Highly possible, although I've heard some incredible stuff in elevators turn into Muzak. And,
I'll tell you what, a story about that. We were approached by Muzak to have our Montezuma's Revenge stuff played in elevators, and Charlie turned it down. He didn't want any of our music played for free.
Well, I mean, there's a certain it's admirable to have a certain kind of integrity.
Yeah.
I mean, a friend of mine by the name of Pat McDonald, who wrote "The Future So Bright I Gotta Wear Shades" for his group Timbuk3, he was offered I want to say $500,000 for a commercial, and out of his sense of integrity, he turned it down because he felt like a lot of people feel like I think. Like Bill Hicks, the late brilliant comedian, felt like if you sell out and do a commercial, then you are off the artistic roll call. Like your credibility as an artist has gone completely to zero. Because did you even mean it when you made your music, or was it just you were just trying to set yourself up to be a Doritos commercial?
Yeah.
And I don't know. I'm not sure what the true bottom line is. I guess it's your values. Pete Townsend says, when they use Who music in an episode of CSI, some people might see that as selling out, but he says a whole new generation is being introduced to the Who that didn't even know who the Who was because they're hearing Bob O'Reilly on a CSI episode. So I could see it from both directions. But if you're just gonna, write be Bob Seger and compose Like a Rock, and the next thing you know, a week later you see it in a Chevy Ford truck commercial, makes you wonder what the impetus of writing the song was in the first place.
Nah, should go through the charts and hit a number one slot before it's commercialized.
I don't know. Carly Simon wrote Anticipation, and they used it in a Heinz ketchup commercial before it was it even started slipping down the charts. Yes, I mean, strike while the iron is hot. But the whole thing of art and commerce, that's something that we artists have to deal with all the time through the course of our path of like, how many concessions are you going to make in order to quote unquote make it?
Well, I'll tell you, Jim and I have written a lot of songs amongst us over the years. We haven't made anything off of it.
Yeah.
It hasn't been money motivating us. It's just the.
On the other hand, for the past 3 minutes, I've been trying to figure out which one of our songs would go good in a Doritos commercial.
We need a manager. Music Stand Magazine, I ventured with an artist up in Canada. Illustrations. He did a great job. I just gave him here's what the song's about, and here's what I want to see in the thing, and he just did it, and he came up with some great stuff. And I think it allows us, I haven't done it, my theory was I was going to take that magazine and go up into Capitol Records and sit down in the lobby and throw it on the desk and walk out, and some executive would say, what the hell is that? And pick it up and go, oh, this is interesting. And, a new way to market your band, right? Because we've lost it. We don't have record stores anymore. So he did a pretty good job. I just want to say.
The illustrator is Larry Nardolsky?
Yeah.
So, he did a fantastic job. And it really does turn it into a multimedia experience that way.
Yeah.
The way it used to be when you opened up Goodbye Yellow Brick Road and you had 36 inches of illustrations there and the lyrics there, along with the music that was pouring out of the speakers. It was a whole other experience than listening to something with your ear up to a transistor radio and of your cell phone.
That's why I always like the bifold albums that you could open up and there's just more to read. And you'd read it every time you listen to the album.
That's right. And the gatefolds, like it said on the Bob Marley album, Rastaman Vibration, it said this album jacket is excellent for cleaning herb.
There's a comment on the front of that thing there.
It says, you'll want to roll a fat one while listening to the music and perusing the visuals. Superb. So saith the editor.
Yeah.
And so thusly, at this moment in time, here we are in 2024, as we're approaching the holiday season. You're finishing up, have finished. What is your 5th project with Picus? You're doing a symphonic?
Yeah, it's an awesome experience.
Does it have a name? Does the piece have a name?
Yeah, well, it does. Another thing. Here's what I've done. It's a thematic thing. It started off as a
more as a goof, just to see if we could do it. We thought,
but Jim's got a great studio down there, and he picked up a lot of good little apps and stuff for different sounds, trumpets and stuff like that. And we started writing that. It's thrilling. It's unlimited what you can do. I mean, let's put some strings here. Let's put some horns here. Let's put some stuff here. Timpani.
It's the kind of thing that real composers would probably do in a couple of months to do a soundtrack for a movie. Mm-hmm. But
so right now it's called Akan of Eldervan.
Okay.
Eldervan is a fictitious fantasy village in the early Renaissance time, and Akan is it's another Shakespearean tragedy. And so I've written up a whole storyline of that, sequenced with the music, and of all things, ChatGPT came along in the middle of this. I said, well, what I write is, hi, this is blah, blah, blah. What it needs to be in the prose and the feel of Shakespeare. So I told ChatGPT, take what I've written and rewrite it in Shakespeare's prose and stuff, and language and like that. It's beautiful.
So it takes a line like, I went to get a 6-pack at the 7-Eleven, and it says, thou hast brought me a cup of mead.
Mead.
And
I drank it splendidly. Right?
Yes. So
exactly.
I was shocked. First time I took the whole thing, shoved it in there, and it came back with a nonsense thing. But then I started taking sentence by sentence, feeding it to ChatGPT, and coming down with some language like that. Now Jim and I are talking about doing our next album,
which is going to be what?
We're thinking the 7 Deadly Sins.
Yeah.
Assisted by AI.
We might actually come up with a few more sins just to round out the album. So I'm sure we can come up with something.
12 Deadly Sins.
Yeah, because 7 songs isn't quite enough, right?
If they were Pink Floyd length, then yes.
Yeah, exactly.
But 12 is a good even number.
Yeah. Anyway, that's it. Whether we go that route or not, I don't know. But I think we have been kind of mulling over the idea of 7 Deadly Sins as a thematic thing again. We'll submit it someplace and it'll get ignored. But I'll sit at my house with a beer, listening to our music, going, "Oh, I enjoy that."
Mm-hmm. Well, isn't that what a true artist is? A true artist makes art because they have to, not because the contract tells them it's time for some more product.
Well, we're not tortured artists. We have a good time doing it. So.
Yeah. The funny thing about what we do is that, yes, we do it just because we love it, we have fun. And if somebody was actually paying us to do this, it wouldn't come out the same. I have had to compose other things for other clients of mine, and it's always so much more of a chore than the process that we have, which is, what do you think of this? Let's make this go down. Okay, we'll go down, and it makes it so much more collaborative and satisfying.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, satisfying is the word. Mm-hmm. I look forward to our, not even once a week, probably once a week, essentially, but not every once a week.
Yeah,
we get together in the studio and.
Well, we're all creative animals, one way or another. Everybody has a way of expressing their creativity, whether it's in the garden, whether it's on the page, whether it's with a paintbrush, whether it's with a musical instrument.
I can't imagine not being creative or not pursuing creativity activities to.
And turning your environment, your home, your property into a work of art is something that you've excelled at as well.
Yeah.
And with your studio, that's your palette. The studio is the palette that you create.
He's amazing in the studio.
That is my primary source of creativity, is just in the studio, being able to help other clients realize their vision and come up with something better than they ever thought that they could do.
Now, he's not just the engineer behind the board, he's the producer of their albums and stuff like that.
I put a studio together in like 2003, something like that, because I thought, I've got some songs and I want to put them out.
You ain't recorded them yet.
And since 2003 to now, the number of projects that I've done for different people, because people found out I was recording, says, hey, could you record me? Well, yeah. So I get involved in that project and another project and another project. And so I can't even tell you how many albums I produced for other people, and the number that I produced for me is that.
0. Well, this is your project. I mean, you have produced 5 Picus Maximus records.
Exactly.
So that, I would say, that's an extension of you.
But my point is that every project is an extension of me.
Sure.
But the things that I've actually done self with me at the center of it is Zippo.
Having come up through the last, let's say, 5 decades of technology, when you would go into a recording studio and state of the art was 24-track 2-inch tape.
What a difference.
And now
when we started, it was 8-track.
It was 8-track, yeah. Well, there you go. And now we're up to where you can stack literally an infinite amount of digital tracks on top of each other based on whatever your processing speed is for your computer.
Yeah.
And so how do you see that transition across the years as a plus, minuses? What are the benefits? What are the
I think
drawbacks?
It's a plus.
Well, it's a plus to a point. For instance, that first Montezuma's Revenge album that we did was 8-track, and sometimes we'd have to take the drums and mix them down to 2 tracks and add stuff to it, and do things like that, which is kind of like what the Beatles were doing, and
bouncing down tracks because you only had so many tracks on the multi-track.
And at that point, you can either let your imagination totally run wild and add things to an infinite degree, or you can pull yourself back and make choices. Mm-hmm. And
those are studios we were paying for back in the day. We didn't have home studios.
Right.
That's how it's really improved with the technology.
Well, sometimes I find that the limitations, that if you've only got a 4-track to work on or an 8-track to work on, you have to become more ingenious as to what you employ, because the new model where you have so many choices, maybe it's too much. Maybe there's too many options.
Exactly. And so the real creative part of that is to pare all that down and say, yes, we can do this, but do we have to?
Right.
In order to get our point across.
Right. Well, that's where making good creative choices, you can overproduce something so many ways. And
I've done that.
Throw in the kitchen sink and then some.
Yes.
And that's fun. And I've done the same thing myself. But it's also, if you go back to just the sound of a human voice with an acoustic guitar or a grand piano, and then you try to make subtle things come up within that production, that's also sometimes way more powerful than a full-on in-your-face kind of production.
Or a screeching monkey.
Or a screeching featuring Hector the homosexual monkey on this particular track. And that's a Lester Bangs reference.
Not that there's anything wrong with that.
No, not at all. Not at all. Well, there's room for everybody at the table, I think.
I think Lester Bangs did the notes on the first Homegrown, didn't he?
No, it was Cameron Crowe.
Cameron Crowe, that's right.
Yeah. Lester was Cameron's mentor, talking about San Diego rock journalism history here, or East County, El Cajon. Lester being an East County.
Cameron Crowe was supposed to come out to a show that I did with Richie Furay, because Richie is having a documentary made about him, and Cameron was supposed to be part of that, but he was ill that night.
Well, that you bring up Cameron Crowe and Richie Furay. I mean, Jim, you've played on some shows, I think under the moniker Back to the Garden, and doing sort of stuff from that late '60s, early '70s singer-songwriter renaissance of, Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young, and then of course Richie was in Buffalo, Springfield, and Poco, and you've had a chance to play with another legend, which is Richie Furay.
I am like triply blessed that being able to play with somebody that you listened to growing up. Buffalo, Springfield, and Poco were like the top of the range of artists when I was getting into playing music with my friends, and to be able to do some gigs with Richie has just been a blast.
I can imagine. I mean, it's a lot of classic material.
Absolutely.
You've got some of the greatest songs of the late '60s and the early '70s in that canon. Well,
if you think without Buffalo Springfield, there'd be such a dearth of stuff that never happened. Poco never would have happened. The Eagles probably never would have happened. Crosby, Stills, and Nash never would have happened.
Right.
So
that launched pretty much, like I said, a cultural renaissance at that period of time.
Absolutely, yeah.
And when, I would say, 1972, 74, like when Carole King's Tapestry came out, and Cat Stevens and Elton John and James Taylor were all the rage, it was sort of a heyday for that style.
Tapestry was 1970.
71,
yeah.
And that was like the biggest selling album of its time.
Yep.
And that really did promote that kind of aesthetic for a while there, that confessional singer-songwriter, Jackson Browne kind of deal. And you mentioned the Eagles and all the artists like Warren Zevon that were on Asylum Records at the time. And, and it was a great time for songwriting.
Awesome.
It
influenced Montezuma's Revenge, because in the group Dakota we were playing, we did almost entirely all Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young, Buffalo Springfield, and original stuff,
and Neil Young,
Neil Young. Montezuma's Revenge, because of the vocals.
Right.
A lot of the groups back then weren't vocal like that. It was just a singer kind of thing, but those harmonies were just so enriching. That got incorporated into Montezuma's. We had a lot of good vocal stuff doing that.
As I'm fond of telling people from time to time, growing up in Northern Virginia, I graduated from the same high school, Garfield Senior High in Woodbridge, as Emmylou Harris did. And I've met
was she not same class?
No, she's a few years before
you.
Yes. But nevertheless, I've met a number of people who've collaborated with her over the years. Will Kimbrough and Rodney Crowell, and also Albert Lee. And Albert Lee told me I got to attend the concert for George at the Royal Albert Hall. And Albert Lee talked so much about how Eric was so gracious to let me be a part of that. He already had 6 guitarists up there, but he let me come up there and be a part of that. And I understand you played for a while, didn't you, with Albert Lee, Jim?
We did some one-off shows. What we would do with Back to the Garden, we generally specialize in themed shows. And so we would hire Albert to come down and be part of one of these shows. And even before the Back to the Garden thing, I would call Albert down to be like a guest star with some of the Eve Sellis shows that we did at various places. And he's such a gracious gentleman.
He is.
But I met him like in the early 70s, and like the first time I ever got to play with him was at Ernie Ball's daughter's wedding, which was kind of a cool thing. It was like an all-star band, and I was like so thrilled to be part of that, with Albert on guitar, and Freebo on bass
Nice.
from Bonnie Raitt's band back then, and Jim Cox on keys, who for many years was Barbra Streisand's keyboard and band leader. Yeah. And all those guys were just like, oh my gosh, this is like the best band I've ever been involved in.
For sure.
And it was awesome.
Well, you guys have been involved in some pretty legendary stuff here these last 4 or 5, maybe 6 decades going on here in San Diego. And
you make it sound like we're finished.
No, I'm looking forward to the next project. I'm really looking forward to see what you come up with regarding this.
If our audience has any suggestions, mail those into our great host here.
Speaking of audience, if there's anyone that would like to hear any of your music, you can be found. Your CDs can be found on
Here Now.
On Here Now.
It's actually a subdivision of CD Baby.
All right, and then there's going to be links in the comments section for the video, or this is posted at.
Yeah.
And that'll give you an opportunity to get to hear more of what.
Thank you for that.
What Rick Sparhawk and Jim Soldi have been doing these last 15 years or so, and I want to say it's been a pleasure to get to know you here on Frequency 432. Again, my name is John Canis, and thanks for tuning in, and we'll be back in the indefinite future with our next episode. Take care.